Hello and welcome to episode 167 of the Crate and Crowbar. It is the 23rd of November 2016. My name is Chris Thurton and tonight I'm joined by Philippa Waugh.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
News today is the launch of the Steam Autumn Sale.
Yes.
Why have they gone with autumn, not fall? What is this?
Oh, I thought about that.
Because it says it right there on the thing.
I don't know.
Maybe there's some linguistic problem with fall sale. So it's hard to say.
Maybe it changes based on where you are. American listeners, if it's called the Fall Sale for you,
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah.
It's also like end of November.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
strange time,
winter.
particularly because there's going to be a winter sale at some point, and I've got to squeeze that in. But
Will that be in
now and
February,
Christmas,
do you
maybe.
think?
I don't know.
Is this like a Thanksgiving thing?
Oh, holidays 2016.
Holidays?
Because
Do Americans think
this
of Thanksgiving as an autumn thing?
I think it must be, because turkeys are the right kind of colour for autumn. aren't
Yeah,
they?
logically.
I mean, and
You
also
know.
it takes place in autumn.
But November.
I feel like the end of November is basically winter. It feels like winter here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I didn't realise that dimension to this. I assumed they would have called it a fall thing.
No, well, well, these are all mysteries
These
that
are
we
all
can't
mysteries.
answer.
In terms of the sale itself, so the new thing is the Steam Awards.
Which I saw really quickly.
Yeah,
Because I
tell
was
us
trying to buy a Hidden Object Adventure bundle, and then it was suddenly like, do you want to nominate this for the Steam Awards? And I was like, what's a Steam Award? Also, no, I haven't played it yet. And so what it seems to be is that during the period of the autumn sale, you can nominate games for awards, and there are 8 categories. One is you can make up your own category and submit a game for
Yeah.
it. But the others are all things they're slightly offbeat to varying degrees. So one at the far end is, I guess, best game featuring a farm animal, or best farm animal in a game, rather. And then there are other things like best game within a game.
Villain who most needs a hug.
Yeah, things like that.
They're quite weird. They're very esoteric, but there's only 8 of them, which is strange.
Yeah,
they're really specific, and then they just don't cover anything
And
else.
there's also the game that you thought should get an award before the awards even were a thing, or so. It was something like that. It was basically the
game you
hipster
liked
award,
before it got an award
yeah.
or something.
And the other, and there's another one for, what is it? Stood the test of time or something. So it seems maybe like they're trying to obviously reward the fact that people are going to be presumably going through the Steam backlog to look at sale opportunities and pick out things that are good. It does seem weird that the nomination is on a thing on the store page, which is presumably before you've played it.
Yeah, there's also an achievement for playing a game that you've nominated. And I feel it should be an achievement for nominating a game you've played.
Yeah.
That seems like the better way around to do it.
It feels like that. So the wacky categories thing is probably an attempt to get people to either engage to put some thought into this process, so it's not just totally random, or to mean that if the results are totally random, no one can get annoyed because the categories are so abstract and subjective that you wouldn't necessarily it becomes ironic if someone, puts something on category. Because if it was, best shooter, best racing game or whatever, and you got total crowd-sourced noise back from that, and Bioshock Infinite wins best racing game, which it probably will, then, it would be more obviously flawed.
Yeah, I think there is a certain amount of trying to maybe game it so that people aren't as inclined to mess with it, or to try and break the system, because I guess if they're a bit more offbeat, what's the point? But also I think that there are a couple of other things. So one is that obviously not all of the big games out are on Steam. And I think if they'd gone for, best of 2016, there would be glaring omissions, from other platforms.
Might almost be a neat move on their part if they did nominate a game of the year and you can only nominate things that are on Steam. Suddenly Titanfall and Battlefield can't be in the club.
Oh yeah.
And there was another thing that I've totally forgotten. Oh, I thought maybe it was also to try and push people away from their habits. There are so many games that you sort of know are shoo-ins for particular categories just because that's how their narrative certainly in the media, but also in just pop culture has unfolded. If they'd had, best flawed but amazing game, you can guarantee that Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines would have probably been somewhere near the top for that.
What is the best game within a game?
Well, I'm wondering whether someone's going to find a way to nominate the Sombra ARG anyway. Just find a way.
I will tell you, there's two reasons that would definitely go to Gwent in The Witcher.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And I haven't played that enough to care myself.
But they're making Gwent, so does that make it not count?
That's
anymore?
A game out of a game, but also you can play it within The Witcher.
Well,
so
yeah,
it still is a game within a game.
Well, I'm nominating the planetary mining game in Mass Effect 2
that everyone hated.
You should. It was a mighty game.
Massaging planets with your thumb.
I think Rich McCormick was really into it as well.
I know. He's right.
And I maxed that shit out. Got to save everyone's lives.
Also, the conversational minigame in Oblivion.
Oh god, yeah.
Top minigame.
Everything I learned
I do quite enjoy that.
Yeah. There's a lot of good Easter eggs in the Mass Effect 2 mining minigame. Have you ever seen what happens if you start repeatedly probing Uranus?
Yes.
ED tells you off. What a game. Yeah, I don't know what there's a lot of good games within games in GTA 5. Like the tennis minigame and the other stuff you can do, because that game has an absurd amount in it. And it's only 20 quid in the Steam sale, so that's a good link back.
Ooh.
So that's one of the good discounts I saw. There's a few things like Elite for 12 quid, Elite Dangerous. I'd happily pay that for it.
The original Dishonored is £2.63.
Wow. I think it comes with Dishonored 2, so that might be one of the reasons that they're
I don't know.
selling it cheap. But
if you buy Dishonored 2, you get Dishonored 1.
Yeah, well,
Not if you buy the 260 Dishonored 1, you get Dishonored 2.
Oh, no, yeah.
That would be a loophole.
Grammar, eh? That's an important thing. Yeah, so my hard copy of Dishonored 2 came with a code for Dishonored 1.
Oh, yeah.
Well...
We get in the Assassin's pack. I have an Assassin's pack. I vaguely remember it saying something about it the first time I launched the game, and I was like, oh, fuck off.
So it's actually, it's, you know that thing we always used to complain about Human Revolution, where you're like, oh man, this feels like it kind of puts you ahead of the curve with this rifle. So it's kind of the opposite of that. It's so ineffective. You will never know. What it is, it starts you off with 500 extra gold, which isn't a huge deal. Like, it's enough to get the rune in the first shop without having to worry about it. Whereas, I mean, if you just go explore, you'll be fine. But like, you also get there's and something like the little flyer that came with my edition. It says like exclusive lore book, and it's in the Dreadful Whale in your little cabin. There's a book which is something like a musician's memories of Sarkhanus, something which is a little diary from the perspective of a musician who was on a passenger on the Dreadful Whale for a while. That's it. That's pre-order exclusive. That's prime pre-order exclusive lore. And also 2 bone charms, which you find in your cabin.
Oh yeah, I got those.
Which are kind of combat themed, but bone charms. Bone charms are sort of not 10 a penny, but you burn through them and swap them out so quickly that
they're pretty minor.
Yeah, I don't think you would necessarily go, oh fuck. It's not like not having a silent sniper rifle.
Yes.
Which was the Deus Ex thing.
I just invalidated 2 of the weapons in the game. Like, there was a non-silent sniper rifle that's really expensive and you don't get for ages. And then there's the silenced tranquilizer rifle, which if you want to go for a lethal thing is just less good than an actual, sniper rifle.
So thank God. There's literally no reason to want those things.
I want my pre-order bonuses to be as bad as possible.
Yeah. So, other than that, I mean, the award stuff is kind of fun. I'm interested to see if people take to it in the spirit it's meant, rather than just sort of spam it. Cause I mean, I was going to say, like, having just, last week done the Golden Joystick Awards, which are, user voted awards that, PC Gamer's parent company runs. A lot of that's a really good barometer of what things people are excited about, but it's also a big test of like which games have the most passionate, excited territorial communities. Like Overwatch totally swept it this year because it's got a big community that when mobilized will vote for it all the time. Same with The Witcher, which has won every category it can, including this year. So, you know, I think maybe dodging traditional categories is a good way for Steam to avoid simply getting those communities kind of roll in and, you know, push their game to the top. Not saying that they don't deserve to win, because that's the nature of a vote, but maybe, I don't know, maybe if we've learned anything this year, it's that voting isn't a perfect way to decide stuff.
Yeah. I was having a look, and one of the games that I really love that no one else seems to have heard of is Forget Me Not, My Organic Garden. And that's like a clicker game, but also with a story that is kind of about selling magical enchanted human organs. I think I've spoken about it on here before, but like that's £2 something, down from like £7. So I feel like people should try that if they are in any way interested in slightly quirky clicker games, which I am. So yeah, and also I made notes. Listen, notes. So I think Abzu is half price, and that sounded good. I mean, as in, I wasn't like bowled over by it, but I think like for, what is it, $7.50?
Yeah.
It's certainly got its fans.
Yeah.
I'd say it was
I mean, it's beautiful and it's lovely, but it just wasn't quite of the same caliber as the previous work that people from that studio had produced, I thought. But also like Crypt of the Necrodancer and Euro Truck Simulator 2. They were both just under £4,
Wow.
I believe. Or just, well, one was £2.74 and one was £3.74.
Those are opposite games.
And Alice's Patchwork, which is just a mosaic puzzle game, was £1.99. So I like those things. Oh, and Saints Row 4 is £3.
Oh, wow. That's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
That game's great. And yeah, and if other, you know, open world superhero things, I know Batman Arkham Knight was like a £10, £13, something like that.
I don't look at big games. I look at strange, weird, tiny things that no one will talk to me about.
But, you know, if you want to, you know, if you want to sweep in and clean up last year's AAA things, then...
I think Stellaris is like £24 or something as well.
Yeah, Stellaris has never been discounted a lot. Like, it was...
But that's still like a decent chunk, isn't it?
Yeah, I think down from 30, so... But it's not like...
30, 35 maybe?
35 maybe. I think I paid 30 for it. But that might have been another sale. But yeah, like that's... I think a lot of people look for like that sort of magic tenner range where it's... feels like getting a substantial discount, but yeah.
Maybe that's for the winter sale.
Indeed.
Whenever or whatever that might be.
The absence of daily deals is a continued good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they've got their highlighted deals. Is there any difference in that?
It's basically, from the developer side, it used to be that you would specify a discount for the whole duration and then a discount that's bigger for if your game gets selected to be featured for like a limited time. And now you just specify one discount, and so your discount is the same for the whole sale, and they choose whether they highlight you or not. And so when they highlight you, that's not like a limited time extra discount. It's just the normal discount. They just decided to, you know, make a fuss about you.
Okay. That's cool.
Is Gunpoint on sale, Tom?
It is. It's like hard to really pimp it, especially hard because it was 50% quite recently, and it's 50% again. It will be again soon. There's no rush. Buy at your leisure.
And that's how you plug something. Not very hard, and only when pushed.
I wonder how people are feeling about Steam sales nowadays. Like, because that question comes up so many times, like, about people's gaming backlogs and things. And
Yeah.
But I just don't really buy anything from the Steam sales that, like, above and beyond what I will naturally play nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm really glad they exist because it just makes gaming so much more accessible, basically. Like, if you're just really hard up for budget, then you will get to play almost everything at some point. It just won't be right as soon as it's released.
I think people will browse more as well. Like, otherwise, I think it's a bit more either you know what's coming out or it's whatever is on your wish lists or whatever else. But I think when there's a sale on, you might just pick a price point and go and see whether there's stuff that takes your fancy.
I hope that it encourages people to experiment a bit, maybe, especially if, because it makes sense to be cautious about where you invest your money normally. But like you say, like something like European Truck Simulator being less than the price of a sandwich kind of pushes it into that territory where, and it's a perfect game for like, you might not like this, or you might end up loving it, and suddenly you've gained a genre that you care about that you wouldn't have expected to like.
You can either have a Boots meal deal or a trip to Sweden.
Yeah.
Something.
A very slow drive to Sweden. Or a very fast drive relative to really doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I didn't see anything I'm going to pick up necessarily, but that's mostly because got a backlog.
I think there's a few things I'd buy for other people, maybe. And foist it upon them.
It's good foisting time of year. Definitely.
Yeah.
Or gifts, as we sometimes call them.
You haven't seen what I'm going to buy people.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Actually, that is maybe a time-honored tradition of Steam sales that we don't give enough heed to, which is buying total shit for your friends. You can force them to own it.
Yeah. Can you still do that thing where you give them something and if they don't unpack it, they can re-gift it? Like, isn't that a thing?
I don't think so. I think they have to either accept the gift or not.
Okay.
I mean, there's a reason that I own, like, my favourite horse, Crystal Quest. Or I
think I've played that. Like, actually seriously played it.
Still a case that when you buy someone a gift, you get to write your own message, but you are not allowed to choose how to sign it off. You must select one of their options, which are like, blast it, or XOXOXO, or game on.
I always try and choose the most inappropriate one, I find, especially like when it was my brother's birthday. It's just like language I would never use. Like,
fuck you!
On.
Why is this one on the list?
Or sincerely.
It's funny that they allow you to write the rest of the message yourself, but not that bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't mind it as long as the recipient understands that I had limited choice. Like, I almost want the rest of the message to just be, by the way, I didn't get to choose the sign off here. I had to pick it from a list, and here were the options.
Reminds me, on a slightly different topic, I saw for the first time someone struggling manfully with Overwatch's automatic chat censorship. I don't know if you were aware they put this in. So if you type in GGEZ in Overwatch, which is the kind of like the asshole's way of signing off after a game, it replaces that text with some random message from like, what a great game, I had a lovely time, to like, my mum says it's time for me to go to bed now. And I saw someone spamming all of those lines, and I couldn't, and at first I thought they were just, playing with the system, like to see what it was. But after a little while, it became abundantly clear that they were trying to figure out how to say GGEZ and kept getting caught by it. And eventually they managed to spell it out. They were desperate to. And then, so it was like, then it was like G and then GGG and then E and then Z in different messages. And then fuck's sake, stupid game. It was great. What have you been playing, Pip?
Oh. I've played Meadow. That's a thing.
Oh yeah, I saw you playing Meadow.
So it's the thing, social project thing by Might and Delight, who make the Shelter series. And so what it is you have servers called groves, and you can sign in as particular little animals and then just go running around and collecting things, and there's no violence and there's no sort of food chain or anything involved. It's just you can romp around to your heart's content.
Is this multiplayer?
So yeah, it's more in the journey vein of multiplayer, in that you can see other people in the same grove as you, but you can only interact with them through emotes, which are sort of purposely useful but vague, and then also just by your little creature's behavior, so you can make it jump and run and, make happy yipping noises and things like that. So, there's one for kind of like a little animal waving when, someone comes up to you. And then there was, one that we were using for, crossing a stream, so that was the direction that we wanted to go in, and things like that, or to alert people when you'd found the glowing crystals or plants and things, because those are the things that
it's a video game.
Yeah. So but it's more about the actual fun bits, and more just about how people seem to be just quite positive and friendly within the system. And so I had a lovely moment where it was just me and about 5 other people as little animals running down a hill and just making sort of happy noises and things. And so that just seemed to be about celebrating a moment that was nice, or just all being there at the same time and then wandering off and doing things. It's interesting though, because you feel a weird pressure not to just wander off. Like, I was running down the hill with these people, and then afterwards I was like, okay, well, I'd quite like to do my own thing. But it was surprisingly difficult to leave the group, I guess. Cause one of them was a rabbit, and the rabbit kept hanging back to, I think, maybe check that I was still with them or hadn't got lost or something. And so if I tried to strike off on my own, I didn't know whether they were gonna feel stressed and want to sort of corral me back to the group.
And you aggressively yip at them until
I
the bond is...
disconnected.
Wow.
Rage quit Meadow.
What the fuck are you doing, badger dickhead? They scream.
But they would have had to do it through emotes, so it would have been the cross one that means no, like loads and loads.
It feels like a good metaphor for like the way, birdsong always sounds pretty, but you don't know what they're really saying to each other.
Also, like the world sometimes has these edges, and I jumped off one to see what would happen. Your badger falls for a long time, and you can make yipping noises while you're doing so.
You wave to the world you've left behind.
I think I tried to do a little crying face. But then he died. So, well, he didn't die. He respawned
alternate cut of Watership Down.
So is there no danger in the world?
No, it's very purposely, like, there's no survival mode. There's no, nothing. And it's a really slight experience. I think pre-Steam sale, I don't know what it is now, but it was like $1.99 or something. And you get a few like extra bits and pieces. Like if you own the Shelter games, you get extra things that you can be in the game. Like you can be a Lynx cub if you have Shelter 2, I think.
DLC links.
Well, and so, and I was just earning, like new skins, like literal skins, I guess. For my badger, just by collecting the glowing things around the world and stuff like that. But it was a lot more attractive than the previous Shelter games. Like I've never got on with them. I've never seen what other people see in them. I found them quite sort of cumbersome and frustrating, and I've never liked the animals particularly, but this was actually just quite nice. It was just nice shared little moments, I think. And the art style felt a bit more helpful.
Was there a most popular animal?
Well, I don't really know, because I think that I spawned in obviously just as the badger, which I think is the default, and you can go to a den and change, but I kept getting distracted, so I never found a den to go and change in. But so I don't really know. I know there's a leaderboard somehow. And if you are in the top 10 of the leaderboard, you can be an eagle of some kind.
Wow.
But you have to maintain your place in the top 10 to keep being that eagle.
Good.
And then you can like prey on the other animals.
Well, yeah, but if you've bought all of the Shelter, well, no, but I mean, you can fly, which is pretty cool. And if you've bought all of the other Shelter stuff, like all of the books and the, games and all of that kerfuffle, like, I think you get to be a bald eagle, which I mean, sure, fine, whatever. Like, I'm not invested in it enough that I actually want to do any of those things, but it was nice.
Essentially what I was fishing for is A, is there a meta, and B, are people angry about it?
I mean, I could try and be angry, but I think that would be unfair of me. I don't know what the meta is though,
Yeah.
The rabbit could run really fast, but I don't know whether that was just because the rabbit player was better at, like, the control system. Well, no, the control system's that annoying thing where, you know, you're using WASD to navigate and then your mouse to, like, look around. But it always really throws me off when the forward direction doesn't change in relation to your mouse movement. So you, like, if you hold...
So it's got tank controls and a badger.
I don't know. I've never played a tank. But yeah, so that was, like, and I kept just getting stuck under trees for that reason, and because the camera's a bit jumpy. But yeah.
So do A and D turn you or strafe?
Hang on, I don't know.
Can badges strafe? Is it really?
No, I don't think they can strafe because I think that's key to having, like, the relational movement of the mouse.
It's key to the natural order. Badges can't strafe.
Yeah.
They'd be OP if they could strafe.
Well, have you ever seen an animal strafe?
The ascent of man would never have happened if badges could strafe.
Crabs permanently strafing.
Crabs are permanently strafing. That's true. I mean, like...
the strafe lords.
Yeah, crabs are bound to strafe by default, but they can turn. It's not primary movement to them.
Really, though?
They have to use a mouse to turn. They have to find and use a mouse to turn.
No, but so yeah, what you're describing there are tank controls, which is where you kind of control your look separately to your movement. So it's just good to know that badges work that way.
Yeah, no, they do.
This will prepare you for World of Tanks, if you want to.
Okay. I've played World of Tanks, I just clearly don't remember anything about the control system.
There's a lot of frolicking.
Is there a game in which you actually do control a tank with mouse look? Like, whichever direction you move the mouse, it turns to face that? And
Halo.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember the no, wait. What are they called?
Scorpion
Warthogs.
tank. Warthogs are the, good memory though. Scorpions are the tanks.
All right. I was thinking of UT 2004's Jeeps, which are the Scorpion, I think.
Am I wrong then?
No, you might be right as well.
Okay.
Scorpion's quite a common name for a video game.
They're not, yeah, it's not going to be called, I was going to say it's not going to be called the Badger, is it? But the Badger.
It's a strafe badger.
This goes not exactly full circle, but maybe sort of oblong, because, I remember I had to watch a World of Tanks championship for a previous job at one point, and I really do not understand the appeal of tanks. I mean, you know, you can tell when someone's doing something well, but beyond that, it was a bit of a mystery to me. But the way that I made it exciting for myself was pretending that they were big metal ducks that were like hiding and wandering around and having a good time in buildings.
Firing 40mm high explosive rounds at one another.
Yeah, that's how ducks do.
Breadcrumbs.
That's geese.
40mm high explosive quacks.
Geese are weaponized ducks.
That statement goes unassailed.
And there have been absolutely no dissensions with this, so that passes.
The motion passes.
What's a swan in that environment?
A menace.
Nuclear option.
Yeah, oh, nice.
That's just like the goose with the DLC.
It's the Queen's DLC.
Oh yeah.
Now we're all swans of bitches.
Nice.
I think of the phrase "swans of big tits" stuck in my head. Cool. That sounds nice.
Thanks.
Meadow. One thing I was going to ask is because the reason I asked about the danger thing wasn't because of like whatever the competitive meta of Meadow is, but because like the shelter games had lethality in them. They were sort of about you know nature, red in tooth and claw, and you know sometimes your little badgerlings are going to get fucked up by nature because that's the way
I led one of them
jungle.
into a fire.
Exactly.
An eagle ate one.
Exactly. Very Laura the
Very high-ranking player.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It sort of surprises me.
Prop for feed.
Jesus. It surprises me that there's no sort of, natural dangers, right?
Well, this was more just about like, creating a social space. They've described it as a forum in gaming clothing, really. And
right.
like, I think it was far more about that, those interactions and things. I'm not sure like what they're getting out of it, like whether it was just maybe a testing ground for something as well as being, just a low-key social experience or something. But I am glad it exists.
Made me realise that I'd totally play Animal Daisy.
What would that be like? Animal Farm?
No, you'd just be like, you're a little mouse or something and you're going to get fucked up by other players for no reason.
Then why would you be a mouse?
I don't know, maybe you just spawn as a random animal. You'd have no choice over it and you have to find your own place in the world.
But then you just get people rage quitting as like shrews.
You'd have to account bind it. So if you're a shrew, there's no amount of rage quitting. Although you probably get a really depressing thing of like loads of mice killing themselves. So they can respawn as a different. That would explain lemmings.
Wow.
And Buddhism.
Yeah, I was thinking you could have like a reincarnation sort of element to all of this.
Yeah, you only reincarnate up the food chain if you live a full life.
Wow, yeah.
Would this be your top candidate for the farm animal in a game? Do you think?
Exactly. I mean, lacking better options, it sounds like we need to invent it totally hypothetically without ever really putting any of these ideas into practice. Tom, you've been playing IGF games.
Yeah. It's a really cool thing. IGF. It always takes a while to get into it because like the first thing that happens is you get assigned a bunch of games that like this year they were decent, but then none of them were like mega special. And you kind of have to rate those and it takes a while for it to get going. And then like often the games that everyone's talking about, are things you already know about and you kind of knew were going to be, hot topics. But then as it goes on, you start to sort of discover more and more things you didn't know about and see like, it has this feed of judges' comments where like whatever, judges have commented on recently is just in this stream. And it's always really interesting to read that and see what's kind of catching people's attentions and what people are responding to. And so I played a bunch of stuff outside of I finished all my sort of mandatory judging, and judged a bunch more about the stuff that I'd already played anyway. And then I discovered a few things. One of them, like the main one I'll talk about, I'll leave for the end. So the ones I want to mention quickly are, Streamline, which is a very streamlined, mobile style game, but, you can actually play it now for free in your browser, my lord. At a URL that we'll have to put in the show notes.
A fantasy lady's waiting for you right now, my lord.
It's the least, it would be very hard to make a kind of shitty banner ad for this game because it's, just a grid that's mostly empty and just has like one or two solid blocks in it. And you control it with one of your, with the cursor keys, and whatever direction you press, you move as far as you can in that direction until you hit something and you leave a trail behind you like a snake. And then from there, you press a different direction and you go in that direction. And so it's a bit like Snake, only you don't die if you collide with yourself. Your own body will stop you. So if you kind of loop around and hit your own body, then it just stops you, and then from there you can go up or down. And most of the challenge comes from the fact that you can't sort of stop until you actually hit something. So if the exit is right in the middle of the grid, then there's no way to kind of go up and stop halfway and then turn right. You're going to have to go all the way to the top and hit the top, and then from there go right. And then later on they add things like, keys, and as soon as you touch a key, all of the lock blocks on the level disappear. And at first you think, oh, okay, it's a way of like opening exits to get into new areas. But then you realize that almost always in this game, a solid block is a good thing and getting rid of them is really bad. And so it becomes about dodging the keys because the keys are going to take away all those blocks that you actually kind of need to get to the exit. And you can quickly like ensnare yourself in a mess of your own body as in real life. But there are also on some levels, kind of, I don't know what to call them, but like, they're like entrance points. And so they look like the start of the level, but if you hit them, it erases all of your current body and you kind of start fresh. And so their puzzles involve, getting yourself into basically a dead end, but then you hit one of these things and now you're out, you break out of the mess you've made, and kind of start fresh from there. And it's really elegantly designed. It's one of the most like frictionless games I've ever played in terms of it just like feels great. The controls are incredibly simple to understand. The puzzles are super well, paced and balanced so that you always know exactly how to, exactly what you're doing, but it's always like a little bit interesting and, keeps getting deeper and more interesting. I just got to a chapter where you start with 2 start points and you completely finish, you have to get one of them to the exit and then the other one starts. And so where you've left, the old snake is going to block off where the new snake can go, which is really cool. And like one of the slick touches I really like about it is that it's obviously a game where you can screw up really badly. And there is a way to like reset the level, but also if you just want to undo one move, instead of having a different undo move, you just press the opposite direction that you went in, and you go backwards. And it doesn't count any moves you did or anything. It's just completely sort of integrated into the way the game works. So that's really cool. I played a game called Su, S-U, lowercase s, capital U, which immediately made me furious. It's one of those games where like, every time you launch one of these things, you're just trying to figure out what it is at first. And, I clicked on, the first level or whatever, and, within 1.5 seconds I was dead. And it's, like side on sort of platformer, but you're just on one screen. All the platforms are randomly generated, and when you touch them, they fall away. And if you hit the bottom of the screen, you die. And so you're constantly having to jump, and you want to collect these little diamonds that are on the platforms. But if you jump off this platform, if you don't have somewhere to go, you will fall to your death and die. If the platform you jump to, every platform you jump to falls away, and so all the ones that you can reach, you'll eventually get rid of, and your only hope is that new ones will spawn in a location that you can jump to. You can double jump, which gets you quite far, but it's really, really fast to die, and I thought I hated it, but then I just kind of kept playing it quite a lot, and I think I don't like it. It is addictive because it's got that thing where like restarting is so fast, like Super Meat Boy and like I think Super Hexagon, and other games like that where it's like just super punishing, super difficult, but the cost of dying is very low. It's kind of addictive for that reason, but then I kept, and I'd have a good run, like every now and then just, it felt like I was getting into the zone, and I was like just everywhere I jumped there, even if there wasn't a platform when I left the ground, there would be one by the time I needed to land. And that feels really good. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I'm pretty sure those times are just the times that the random generation didn't screw me. And then the rest of the time is when the random generation did screw me. And there may be some skill element that I'm fucking up, but it's really hard to separate that from just, well, I needed a platform there and none appeared. But it's quite pretty, and quite nice. And I want to give a quick mention to Old Man's Journey. I don't know for sure if it's coming out on PC. It's kind of, it's definitely coming out on like iPad. It's, I think on phones as well. But you might have seen a trailer of it going around recently. And it's a gorgeous, sort of soft edged, sort of, pastel colors and beautiful, like French countryside. I think it's French. And you're an old man just walking across some hills. And it's so incredibly well made and so gorgeous, and the music works really well. And playing that for like, even just for the first like 5 minutes, it was just amazing to play a game that is as well produced and, enthralling as like a really good animated film. Like, it's nothing like Studio Ghibli, but it, in the same way that those draw you in, or like a really good Pixar movie where just everything has been so well judged to kind of captivate you and to make sense and be sort of charming and lovely.
What was that one called again?
Old Man's Journey.
Old Man's Journey.
And the way the actual game works is that, it's these beautiful landscapes of like rolling hills that are just these overlapping curves basically. But if you're on one hill and then you like click on a hill in the distance, he just kind of jumps from this to the horizon. So he's basically like sort of warping. And then, I didn't know this until I actually played it, but you can drag those hills and just bend the curve of them. So if you can't reach a hill because its line doesn't intersect with the one you're on, you can just kind of pull it down, and then any hill you're not on, you can kind of bend around and distort the landscape. And then when you get somewhere, he'll just sit down and have a bit of a rest, wheeze for a while, and then he'll remember something from his childhood. And it's adorable.
Aww.
But I think the best thing I've played so far is, She Remembered Caterpillars. Have you played this bit?
I really like that. It's the puzzle game, isn't it? Yeah. And like, yeah, 'cause I've played builds of it. It's been going around a bunch of festivals and things like that, so I think people might have played it at Res.
There's a free demo,
EGX.
I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I only knew of it because I'd seen a trailer a little while back, and it caught my attention because it was one of the only good trailers for an indie game I've seen in about a year, in that it just showed you the game. It didn't have any like CG or static screens of story or things like that. And it was immediately obvious from someone playing the game what the game was about, how it worked, and what was cool about it. And so it's kind of isometric type perspective with, very like lush, surreal backdrops. And then the actual game area is just a series of like tiles. I think they're sort of hexagonal. You control these little like sprites. They have a name.
I really can't remember what they are.
But yeah, little imp type things, and each one is a different color. And if you are a red imp type thing and you walk up to a blue bridge, the blue bridge will suddenly part and not let you go past. But if you're blue, you can cross the blue bridge. And if you're red and you come to a red bridge, you can cross that. And then there are these little like, areas where there's just like a post either side of the corridor or walkway, and it looks like you can get through. But if the posts are red and you are red, they will block you. So like if you're red, then a red bridge you can go across, but a red barrier you can't cross. And if you're blue, you can get through the red barrier. And it's, those mechanics are all really obvious just from watching, someone play any level. The only thing that isn't really intuitive about it is the level select menu, where they have no level numbers and they just show you a sort of series of hexagons, and the top one, it turns out, is not the first level, but the last level of this chapter, and everything is bottom to top. And so you're kind of at the bottom of a tree, and then if you want to move to a later chapter, you can move the whole screen up. And you can actually go to any level at any time in this build. But that meant that because I didn't understand that, I clicked on the top one, and so I technically did level 7 first. And the game is so intuitive that you can actually just jump into level 7 and understand how it all works and solve that. And it seems unusually challenging for a first level, but I still got it and understood everything. And then it just keeps going. There's like, I think 8 or 9 chapters, and each one introduces something completely new that is really drastic. Like, one of them lets you merge colors. So if you have a red and a blue one, you can right click, when you're controlling the red one on the blue one, and they'll jump into each other and become a pink one. And now the pink one let me see if I get this right. The pink one can walk on red and blue bridges, but cannot walk through either red or blue barriers. And then at any time you can also split them back into their component parts. So you have situations where like, I need this yellow one to go across this yellow bridge and merge with the red one to turn him orange. And then that way you can bring the red one across the yellow bridge and then split them again. And the red one's the only one who can get through this other barrier, in order to get to this endpoint. There's like sort of 3 or 4 endpoints in every level, and you've got to get one sprite to each of those. The puzzle logic's really good. Like sometimes it's really daunting to figure out how you start a puzzle, but you can see, okay, one of these endpoints is behind a red bridge, and there's only one red guy, so the red guy has to end up there. And so you kind of start backwards, and you're like, the last thing I do is going to be moving this red guy across that red bridge to there. So the step before that is he's on this other island, and how do I get him there? And often you'll see like, the only way, like, any solution to this is going to involve getting all 3 of them to this island at some point. So I've got to figure out that puzzle first and then take it from there. And then there are like, because I can get to any level, I decided I'd just skip ahead and try see what, not the last level, but the first level of the last chapter was like. And suddenly there are like machines that can suck your color off you and leave you this like weird, like, you're being drained of color, which is kind of disturbing anyway, but it also kind of like takes away their bulk and their shape. So they're left like this really shriveled, like white thin thing. And it's really unsettling.
Like a sausage with no sausage inside.
Yeah. And that becomes a really like clever mechanic because you can strip yourself of color, then you can go to a different one and then like put the color back on and change color. And there are all kinds of like interesting little consequences of the logic of it. I ended up sort of renaming, it's almost completely wordless. The only time it tells you any text is just tell you what the controls are. And so these things are clearly bridges and barriers, but I ended up kind of renaming them in my head to remind myself how they work. And the bridges, I call them requirers, and the barriers, I call them detectors, because there's a subtle difference in how they work, in that if you are, if the bridge is pink and you're red, sometimes I think, I should better cross this because pink has got red in it. But if it's a bridge, it requires pink. You have to have everything that it has. If there is some other color, I don't know if there is, but if you can ever make like tertiary colors where you merge 3 of them and you had red and blue in that mix, I think that would let you cross a pink bridge. But then if you're pink and you go and there's a red barrier, it will stop you because it detects that there's some red inside you somewhere. Even though you're not the same color, you have the same color. And so, like, having the same color is not enough to get you across a bridge, but it is enough to get you stopped by a detector. And yeah, I really enjoyed figuring all that stuff out just through experimentation and just like, trying different things and then like boiling down what the logic is and then trying to work from there.
No, that is really cool. Is it out yet then?
No.
Or is it? Because I was going to say I thought it wasn't yet, but yeah. Yeah,
this is just an IGF build I'm playing, but I think all the levels are there, and I looked at their Twitter and they're kind of like, sounds like they're doing polishing. I think it might be early next year.
Okay. Yeah, because they've been doing the rounds with it for so long that like it's in that weird hinterland of my brain of like, is it out? Is it out? So many people have played it. It must be out.
It must be said that it is such an indie game. It's a really neat, clever puzzle game where the framing device is a series of like, every time you start a level, you get like a little passage of text on a black background, and it's about someone's father dying in a hospital. It's like, of course it is. And of course it has nothing to do with the level that you're playing at all.
If only my father hadn't tried to cross that bridge.
When he was blue and the bridge was pink.
Yeah. Broke both his legs. And he couldn't take me swimming. Slide round. Sorry, I'm just writing this game.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's in there.
Sounds really great though. Sorry, that's the only thing I've said in 5 minutes.
Yep.
But no,
It's cool. What have you been playing, Chris?
So, I have been playing on and off for a little while now, actually, Stellaris, which I wanted to talk about briefly, because I know we've spoken about it a little bit before, and it feels like sort of one of the, it was a big release when it came out, and then it sort of, I guess, petered out for a while if people had some problems with it, and then recently it got its first expansion, which is called Leviathans, and by all accounts its first big patch, and that's when I started playing it. Taking the logic that these Paradox games tend to sort of actually come out about 6 months after they come out, which is when they get their first big update. It's a bit like Civ, really, and how it's always like Civ's first expansion is the one that everyone, actually thinks makes the game. I'm really enjoying it. And I've not previously clicked with like Crusader Kings and stuff like that, that kind of real-time grand strategy thing that Paradox do. It takes a little bit for me to get engaged with it. But I think one thing that Stellaris is really good at, that I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be good at, is sort of telling you a story and sort of allowing you to have these moments of, that feel like, plot beats from science fiction, but also from sort of hypothetical science-ish kind of thing. So, because I am a boring man, I'm playing as humanity, but there's a reason for that. And I think actually, despite that being like, despite always playing like the boring middle of any given set of things, and particularly because you're allowed to create a race of, if you want to create what was it you made, like thespian fungus people?
Yes.
Like, if you want to do that, you can. 2 of the presets in, Stellaris are 2 different versions of humanity, and it's kind of a nice decision they've made, and they hinge on, 2 specific traits. One is, which is the one I've picked, which is, individualist xenophiles, where humanity is sort of, big on liberal rights and civil rights, and is also really open to the idea of other civilized life and to, sharing and caring in a sort of Star Trek Federation kind of way. And then there is, collectivist xenophobe, which is where humanity is humanity's future form is as a sort of fascist collective that is always sort of Earth first. And they feel like, there's a lot of Mass Effect in that game anyway, in the soundtrack and sort of the design of things. And those feel like the 2 halves of the kind of the human philosophies in that series. And you can pick which one you want to carry forward.
I noticed in Stellaris, like, collectivist always sounds good, and then you sign up for it, and it's like, okay, so you like slaves. Yeah. Oh shit, like that kind of collectivism.
Yeah, it's like 100% like social approval for slavery. But I can get onto that in a second, actually. So I was playing as the sort of the liberal version of humanity, and there's something really cool about, I think if you pick that, the galaxy is a little bit less randomly generated. Or at least the area around you at the start is, so all the stars are the right stars near Earth and the solar system is correct and stuff like that. And it feels like a bit of a different experience because the game starts in, I don't know what year the game starts in for other races, but for humanity it starts in about like 2200 or something, which feels, optimistic, but about right for sci-fi. And what it allows you to do is sort of usher humanity through its first exploration beyond the solar system. So the idea is we have spaceships and we have the capability of FTL travel, but we haven't actually been anywhere yet or met anybody. And things like, I don't know, maybe it's just sort of being sort of ready to be told a story by this kind of game, but stuff like First Contact feels like a really cool moment when it happens, because it's an abstract sort of, maybe right.
Yeah, no, sorry, my shoes are really soft. So I was rubbing them on my face, but then you looked at me, and now I've got to explain myself.
I was seeing this out the corner of my eye, and I wasn't totally sure what was happening, but I thought I'd let it go.
I saw them from a hotel. They're really soft.
Oh yeah, that was embarrassing.
I'm so sorry. I am listening, if that helps.
It's not like you were on the phone to a shoe.
No, you were you were talking about First Contact,
Okay.
feeling really...
So, like, I guess regardless of what race you play, like, it's intended that your first contact with another race of the same level of technological development as yourselves is intended to be a big moment. But it feels like a big moment when it's, humanity, and you've met your first of two different races of pacifist, spiritualist parrot people.
Do the other faction of humanity exist in your universe?
I don't know. I haven't discovered them yet. I've had other factions of humanity crop up, for various reasons. And I don't know if, like, I've already had, like, stuff happen that, that I almost wanted to jot down because it feels like the story of a particular version of humanity, like when my first prime minister died. And, she had been the person who had overseen all these amazing leaps for humanity. So, like, I remembered what her name was so that I could name a space station after her, like, after that, because it felt like the right thing to do. Like, obviously, there's got to be one of the best, leadership records in human history. And and then making first contact with, first an alien civilization of pacifist, spiritualist, parrot people. And then also, making contact with the first, like, independent factions. That's one of the things that the expansion adds are, like, elder races that occupy, like, individual space stations and come in, like, a couple of different flavors. There are, like, archivists that can help you with research if you, spend the time to learn how to talk to them. There are traders, and there are, what they call curators, who are artists, basically, like civilizations that have boiled down to the point where all they want to do is be artists, and you can just hire them to put on a festival for your entire civilization.
Who are the Leviathans?
And the Leviathans are, like, you're still rubbing yourself with a slipper.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No,
it does look comfy. It's alright. I'll try to be less distracted. So the Leviathans are part of that. So there's now these sort of, like, random encounters that you'll have in space that you sort of, when your science vessel enters a new sector, sometimes you'll just get, like, this big red alert, like, we're avoiding something awful. And that creates a cool moment because there are already, like, anomalies that you can scan and stuff that give you, like, little bits of flavor text as you very Mass Effect planet scanny sort of, like, you found this on this planet and it suggests this sort of mystery. And there are kind of, like, plot lines you can follow by investigating the fate of previous races. I understand that's part of the expansion. Later on in the campaign, other stuff along those lines can happen, like the return of these precursor races and stuff. And a sort of big Mass Effect-y space opera kind of way. The Leviathans are more like sort of bosses, basically, but how you and what you decide to do with them are up to you. So I've encountered two so far. One was called the Automated Dreadnought, and I went into a system and there was this massive cruiser, like, just orbiting a star with nothing to do other than to try and kill anyone who enters the system that's in. And there's no way, even with my every ship I've got, I could even scratch it. The other thing I encountered was called an Ether Drake, which is basically a space dragon. But it's so big, you can only see its neck and head, which are kind of like emerging from a black hole. And even that part of it is bigger than a sun. And these things are just, you're supposed to just run the fuck away when you discover them. But if you go and talk to the archivists, I think, you can ask them specifically about any of these things that you've discovered and they'll sort of tell you what they know for a price. So, and it's nice sort of sci-fi flavor text, like the last Drake is this, sort of space creature that's too big to function in our universe, but the idea is that their theory is it's not from our universe. It's the last survivor of the universe before ours. that somehow managed to kind of project itself, so it was evolved for a different dimension with different physics to ours and sort of this sort of doomed thing. And you can kill it for stuff if you want to try. And then like taking these things down involved doing these little quests for these other races and stuff.
That feels mean.
It does feel mean, so I'm not doing it.
He's like the last one that's left.
Yeah.
And he's poking his head into our universe from a different bag. Like,
Indeed. Yeah, I'm going to leave him alone. So this has been one of the things that's happened is I am playing this like I would like things to be. So it's a kind of a Star Trek-y way of approaching it, but I'm seeing my mission is like I have a fleet, but I've only ever used it once, and it was because I got attacked by human pirates, like my own people who'd gone rogue, and I shut them down with the help of the parrot people next door who like warped in a huge fleet to help, and we're bros now. And then the parrot people next door to them, we're also bros with them. They don't like each other, but I've sort of stayed out of it, and I'm like, positive diplomatic relations with both of them because I didn't want to be a dick.
You put birdseed on your galactic border and they come a pecking.
Yeah, I've taught them to eat on my hands. And I've got like benign space stations in orbit over a few planets that have primitive life on them. So like there's one industrial age civilization that I put a station in orbit, but just left it on, just observe, no abductions, no kind of alien business, just, being good. And I've maintained a very sort of, open, positive society for my own people and tried to keep everyone happy and to ensure growth and avoid, pollution, no military service or slavery or anything like that, free movement, all of this stuff. And really positive relationships with my neighbors. And, what has happened is this has totally destroyed my ability to leverage political influence. Like, completely. One of your resources, other than minerals and energy, is influence, which is spent on quite a lot of really important stuff, like creating new frontier stations and pointing your frontier back. There's quite a lot of things that require you to expend political influence to do it as well, including appointing new leaders. And now I have none whatsoever, and I'm hemorrhaging it, and I can't get it. And the reason I can't get it is because influence stems from completing your political mandate, and my political mandate is to create research stations, and I have no more space to create research stations in the area of space that I can build stuff, and I can't expand it because I don't have enough influence, so I'm stuck. The other thing that gets you influence, well, one of them is having essentially like vassal civilizations, but there's no one around me who's weaker than I am, and I don't want to start shooting at my neighbors for no reason. And the other thing that gives you a regular supply of influence is declaring another civilization as your rival. Where the idea is that, like, if your people feel that there is an enemy out there somewhere, then that gives you political credit. Like, that is what gives you a mandate, is the idea that you are there for something. If your people are too content and things are too peaceful, then, I think what it's trying to simulate is that, their faith in your necessity and your ability to leverage power is lesser because, why do we need a prime minister when everything's fucking great? Like, we've just signed a pact that allows the bird people to move in and everyone loves it and, a golden age. And so even though it's frustrating to be basically resource locked, it forces you into some quite interesting situations because politically it feels, that feels like, obviously it's a bit of a gamey system, but it feels like the thing it's simulating is actually an interesting wrinkle to put in my decision, an interesting way of complicating my desire to keep expanding and keep building stuff and doing stuff, but also to not piss anybody off. And so like my first colony, which is in Alpha Centauri, my first like extra planetary colony, they have a growing political faction now that wants independence. Like they want to be their own planet. And, that is because I don't have the influence to suppress that idea. And really, should I be wanting to suppress that idea? And one of the things I can do is just go, okay, and just let them become an empire by themselves, which I might have to do. But
you have to fight them.
Or I have to fight them. And so it pushes you on the edge of like, cause, these games you're naturally in a totalitarian position anyway, cause I'm making every decision for humanity. And it's pushing you towards the edge of like, how far are you going to go to protect this power? Like basically relative to what you're comfortable doing. So it was a great moment when I finally discovered a third civilization, because I knew that the further away bird people were rivals with a civilization I hadn't met because there was a question mark on their list of rivalries. I knew they were rivals with a civilization close to me, and these guys are like best friends we could form a federation, but that would cost me influence to maintain, and I can't do it, basically. I can't convince my people of the need to form a federation with the Parrot Men. And I finally met their other rival, who are collectivist, militaristic fungus people from the other side of, our spiral arm. And this was brilliant because, because I'm ideologically opposed to them on two separate fronts, because they're collectivist and I'm an individualist civilization, and they are, militaristic, and I've been trying to play peacefully. So they sound like dicks. And this is great because it means that I can finally declare that I don't like somebody for no reason other than it's politically useful for me to have finally found someone to not like. Because I was like, for ages, I was like,
let's hate the mushrooms.
Yeah, I was like, for a while, I was like, oh god, should I just pick one of the bird people civilizations and be like, we don't like them now, they're dicks. Vote Chris.
We've always been at war with the Eurasian parrots.
Yeah, exactly. Or did I wait for someone else to come along? And when you meet another civilization, you have a choice of options for talking to them, and this applies to with a few other things which are based on your traits. And so because my version of humanity has the xenophile trait, whenever I meet another alien race, I can literally respond to them and go, wow, oh, great, I'm so glad I met you. Ooh, look how cool you are. Or I can respond with something tailored to the fact that I'm an individualist, and that when it's like another individualist civilization, you can be like, well, hello, we both definitely agree about individualism. Thumbs up. And then there's one that's like xenophile and individualist, which is like, we all independently like you, but no one's been coerced into thinking that. And so I picked the only one that allowed me to be a dick to this guy, because the xenophile tendency meant that most of my options were positive, which was like, you seem cool, but don't really care for slavery, eh? Opposed to that. And so like the very first thing I did was like, like greetings, yes. Trade? No. And then send them a message saying, we're rivals now. Like we've only just met and we're from light years away, but fuck you. Like the envoy ship backs off, raising two giant middle fingers as it leaves fungus space. And then I've realized that I could really use a vassal to help me get out of my influence debt. So I've started discreetly setting all my Overwatch space stations that are keeping an eye on in like pre-space age species, set them to start quietly increasing the technological level of those civilizations, but like under the radar kind of, X-File style, low key kind of infiltrate, improve their tech, don't let them know we're doing it kind of thing.
Upgrade their cows. Yeah,
upgrade their cows. So that by the time they are, ready to join galactic society, they owe me one and can help bail me out of my political situations.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah.
That's you now.
That is me now. Sure.
That's the best Star Trek, no, Star Wars joke I will ever make.
So close.
So close.
Shit! That went
So
badly.
close.
Can we edit that?
No.
To make me sound like I got it right.
No.
Oh.
But yeah, and so that's the sort of the story so far, but it felt like I really enjoyed it. Like, and it's a really relaxing thing to dip back into in the, I enjoy being pushed into those sorts of decisions rather than simply having like a big alien force roll up on my doorstep and shout at me for not having been more war ready earlier, which is a sort of traditional 4X thing for me. It's, my, the collapse of my, ideology is happening purely for my own, on my own bat, which I definitely appreciate. Although, I suppose I could have played it better, but actually that is one of the reasons that I'm glad I didn't make my own race, because I think had I, created a sort of arbitrary, thing of my own collection of parrot people or whatever, then I wouldn't feel as strongly about maintaining the fantasy of what their civilization represents, like going into authoritarianism or suddenly like approving slavery would feel more abstract, were I not playing as,
Human.
real humans. But, which is not to say that the concerns of, parrot people aren't real, but they're not. So, yeah.
I always thought it was a failing of, I say always, this is a relatively recent game, Civ 6, where it's cool the leaders have personalities and they all, sort of judge you based on their own personal philosophy. But it feels like they made a sort of conflation somewhere between respect and like. And so they they talk a lot about like how much the civilization likes you, and if you don't do things the way they like to do things, then they dislike you. And that sounds logical, but then things like having a big military and using it a lot is a thing that certain leaders like. And if you don't do it, they'll like insult you for not doing it. They'll say, oh, we don't like your civilization because you don't have a huge military and scare us. It's like, I don't think that's really something that makes you like someone. I think it's more like respect. Yeah. It's like, I do see that if I had a big military, I would have more sway with you, but it's not like, you're my favorite because you have a huge military and you can kill us at any time.
Yeah, Stellaris is pretty good for showing you like where you stand relative to someone else on different criteria, which is independent of how they feel about you, which seems to be an important kind of metric. Or at any given time, your relationship with them is based on a lot of different factors that are all shown to you quite transparently. So, you know, they're wary of you because they just met you, but they like your face. And they appreciate that you're individualists, so you're already slightly ahead with them, but for that specific reason that might, might cause you to fall back with somebody else. But yeah, it's a good game, and I think maybe if people bounced off it the first time round, or just pick it up in the Steam sale, then now's probably the time to do it, because they definitely patched up some things and given you more stuff to do in the mid-game. And by all accounts, there's some exciting stuff that can happen later on as well, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. If my political clout lasts that long, which it very well might not.
Good luck.
Thank you. So you put the slippers back on now.
Well, I didn't know what to do because you seemed unable to ignore my interactions with them otherwise. I mean, they're very comfy on my feet, but I mean, it's wasted. My feet have absolutely, not the right, level of sensitivity to enjoy them to the max.
And are they fluffy and soft on the inside, or?
Yes,
okay.
But I'm wearing socks.
Right.
Because I don't want to sweat into them and destroy the fluffiness, you see. So you
can't enjoy the fluffiness because you're too afraid of destroying the fluffiness.
Yeah, so I feel like I want to wear them on my face and then I can go back to using my actual slippers.
Like earmuffs.
For warmth, yes. Or little hand muffs. I was considering swapping the end of the things.
The fabled hand muffs invention.
Oh yeah, no, we have a word for that. Okay. No, because a muff is where you put your hands.
What?
Oh god.
No, but you have a muff. That's
not helping.
It's a furry tube that you...
Oh god.
I'm not helping. No, but the Victorians had these things, and you'd wear them on your hands to keep your hands
big in the 70s
warm.
as well, Pip.
So you're saying that the name earmuff is actually
like a muffler,
the ear version of the thing that's previously
it keeps you
for
warm.
hands.
It rolls you up in nice, warm, fluffy things.
I didn't know this.
And that's I presume that's why people use it for the other things, because it's furry.
Well, if anyone is zoned out listening to me talk about space bollocks, they've fallen off their bike now, I'll tell you that.
Oh.
Remember that guy who broke his arm or sprained his wrist or something because we laughed too hard in the podcast and it was deafeningly loud and he was cycling at the time?
Yeah, I feel bad about that. Thank God the Patreon money allowed us to buy top shields. Saved lives.
Shall we do questions?
Yes. Yes, we should. We're going to power through some questions this week because we are also planning to record our Dishonored spoiler cast tonight, which will be going up at the same time as this episode of the podcast. So please forgive us for picking maybe fewer questions than normal this week. You're getting a whole other podcast if you are willing to have the entirety of Dishonored 2 spoiled for you. So hopefully not too small a number of people, but
they can save it for later.
They can save it for later. And if you haven't played all the way through Dishonored 2 yet, go and do that because it's probably the best game released this year, in my opinion. Particularly. Sorry, I'll start again.
Where are you from with
that
one?
I don't know.
No.
Particularly now that it's been patched, is what I was going to say.
Ah.
Anyhow, questions. Joshua Pudney writes, Dear Great and Throwing Star, hi-ho, listening to your recent cluster pickle questions section, there was a chap/chapette wanting to know why the older Elder Scrolls which is a funny phrase. Rubbish skilling up method of just getting a bit of progress every time you brewed a crap potion or spent a solid 5 minutes bouncing up and down like a hyperactive puppy was rubbish. You I think he means hit the nail on the head. You nailed the head on that peg, you're right. But made me think of novel skill advancement methods that did work. 2 examples I can think of. 1, Arcanum had a 4-stage system wherein to actually benefit from higher skill levels you had to 1, have the requisite attribute points, for example, strength for melee, etc. 2, find a sufficiently skilled trainer. This was often a quest in and of itself. 3, pay a fee at low levels, do a quest or quest chain for mastery. 4, spend the XP points to finally actually level the skill. This was great. It made being a dodging master seem like a real part of your character and not just a box you'd ticked for the buff. I still remember the throwing master's quest to find a really badass throwing star to prove your throw-itude. The other was in Dishonored's DLC Knife of Dunwall, where to get every rune in a level you had to puzzle out an arcane recipe left lying around by Granny Rags. This might involve, spoiler alert, plucking out the eye of a slaughtered whale and mixing it with a weeper's corpse, or burning a bloody tarot card in your target's fireplace. This kind of arcane scavenger hunt puzzle seems like it would be a great way to teach yourself magic in a low fantasy open world setting. Anyway, any similar mechanics out there that really impressed you? Shanks are snickering punctured bodies.
I don't know if it's super interesting, but I like EVE Online's method of gaining skills, which is you just say what skill you want, and then it'll say, okay, that's going to take 8 hours. And it's 8 hours of real time, and you don't have to be logged into the game, you don't have to do anything, it's basically idling. And so it just puts a kind of, the limit on how far you can progress in the game is just real time since you started playing. And you do have to check in to change your skills. I don't know if they changed this since I played, but at the time I played, there was no way to queue them up. So if your skill was going to finish tomorrow, you'd have to remember to log in. At the time, I thought the idea behind that was to actually encourage you to check back in so that you're wasting time if you don't. Because it worked that way. It was like, I would come back to EVE Online because I knew I'd have this cool skill I didn't have before without having to put any extra effort into it. And B, if I didn't log in, I would be wasting time because time would be passing, but I hadn't queued up anything else to unlock.
I think it let you queue up for 24 hours when I played a lot of EVE. Right. So you could, if something was going to take half an hour, you could pack in a day's worth of that. So you weren't getting up every half an hour during the night, which would be mad. Worth bringing up because EVE is free to play as of this week. It's finally gone free to play. So a good reason to dip into the most complicated game that no one actually plays. Well, as you know, like hundreds of thousands of people do play it, but yeah, it's I think they made the right decision simply because I'd love to be able to dip into that game every now and then just to check out its beautiful nebula. Yeah. But I have no illusions that my life will ever permit me to seriously invest any time in it ever again.
Yeah.
Although I believe there is a Crate and Crowbar Corp in the works. So you probably find out more about that on Discord. Certainly a different skill system, to anything else I can think of.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a lot to kind of simulate the actual. Well, it's interesting because you'd say that the reason for these other interesting skill systems is their verisimilitude, that they try and actually make you feel some ownership over your leveling up rather than just putting XP in a box. And the EVE one is literally just putting numbers in a box. But it's actually, explained that that's part of the universe, that your clone, your pod body is just being programmed with stuff you need to know, Matrix style, until it becomes intuitive.
Maybe there would be a cool thing you could do with, because I really like how MOBAs do it in that you have a finite number of skill points and ultimately you can upgrade everything, but it's mostly about prioritizing stuff or building according to the demands of the game in conjunction with items and in conjunction with sort of other bits and pieces of how all of the systems interact. And so I was wondering whether there was something to be done around that in RPGs, but obviously those games sort of demand more flexibility because you're supposed to be able to do pretty much anything you like within the world. And, it's not like it ends and you start over again and, 45 minutes later or whatever. So I was wondering whether maybe over time you could just let things decay and then gradually replace them with other things. Like, you'd sort of forget maybe language skills, but you'd be spending your time honing something else, or, you know, swapping out for items that actually help in a particular other thing. So it would be maybe about going through different phases of your character in the game, you know, sort of mopping up quests regarding, I don't know, agility or potion making or something, and deliberately not having everything technically available to you all the time, but having to go through more of a life cycle in some ways.
I think I'd highlight the original version of Star Wars Galaxies as an example of a really interesting skill system, because the way that worked, you had professions, which were essentially a grid of skill boxes arranged into 4 columns of 4 or 5. I think maybe 4 columns of 5. So like the marksman profession would have a column for like pistols, you know, assault weapons, rifles, and so on. And then, as you went up those individual branches, you could often just get the next in the branch by investing specific XP, like the right kind of weapon XP or whatever. But sort of the top level skills that you got after you'd gotten all of that, and also the beginner skills, the entry level skill boxes for professions that branched off from things like that, like bounty hunter was an evolution of marksman and scout, often weren't available in the world at all. The only way to get them was to be taught them by another player who already had them. And so there was sort of a lot of those early professions were kind of like seeded virally in the game by the developers, and then sort of propagated naturally in an economy built up around that. So you would have all of the prerequisites you needed to become a bounty hunter, but you'd have to find someone who was willing to teach you. And that also the same also extended to, languages as well, in-game languages. So you could, it was really easy to learn a language. You just have to find a player to click on you and say, teach them this language. And it was instant. But hypothetically, if you kept it to yourself, you could, around new players who hadn't had time to do that yet, you could just decide to speak Wookiee and they wouldn't be able to tell you what you're saying. They would see it translated into like noises, which, was a really cool idea. And also it meant, you know, it didn't, like, it turned into a pretty, you know, sort of wham bam, thank you ma'am economy of like standing outside a spaceport saying, I want to be a bounty hunter. And someone would go, that's 50,000 credits. And then you go, done. But in other circumstances, it did sort of create, you know, opportunities for interactions between players and opportunities for little relationships to grow. Like,
It'd be fun if you had to do a mission together for that knowledge to transfer.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to take you on like 3 missions as a bounty hunter.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like on the role playing servers, that sort of stuff cropped up kind of naturally anyway. Like people would, like I was, I think, the most senior bounty hunter in my guild for a long time. So like, it was often my job to like train the newbies, give them the skill box.
They
Like,
could
you're
do
ready.
this in Meadow. Like a rabbit could teach me how to be a rabbit.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Master Snuffler.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I wonder
Lord of
what
Boings.
rabbits would be good at, but then I know what rabbits are apparently good at, so
Oh yeah.
maybe
Dang.
that would
Can't be
not-
taught.
Yeah.
There was a
like-
lot of that on the Star Wars Galaxies role-playing servers, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, a lot of that. That was, I do miss that game. As I never go on about. Never happened. Opulence writes, what's the most important element of an emergent stealth game?
Stealth.
I was going to say, let's not be smart asses. But it was
Pip and I
already
both
too
thought
late.
this.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this recently, and I don't know if this questioner is actually responding to a tweet I wrote, but I was saying this has been a good year for emergent stealth games, and I specifically use that phrase because I was trying to classify, like, okay, Dishonored 2, definitely, and Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and those are both immersive sims, but then I'm also thinking of, like, Hitman and Far Cry Primal, and off the top of my head, I didn't know whether those count as immersive sims. They're certainly, like, not as close to the, sort of lineage, and I thought, well, that's not really what I care about. What I care about is, like, that it's a stealth game, and that unexpected things can happen when systems combine. And so emergent stealth games was, like, the thing I specifically said. And when thinking about that, I was thinking, like, okay, what is essential to this? Like, immersive is not really part of it. Sim, I guess, a little bit, but like lots of things are simulators that do not count as this. So for me, it has to have stealth. If it doesn't have, like, if there's no way to just shoot people, that's not essential to me. Like, most of them do have that way, but something like Neon Struct, I don't think that is an emergent stealth game. That doesn't have enough tools for that to get really interesting. But the fact that it doesn't have a way to shoot enemies is not the problem. Like if it had, 5 more gadgets and they're all different ways of distracting or neutralizing enemies, without any of them being a way to directly attack them, it would count, I think, for an emergent stealth game. So for me, it's like stealth and then enough tools that you always have a choice of how to deal with things, and then enough systems that they can combine in ways that the developer didn't expect. Just any way that those things can combine in a way that is surprising, and wasn't just the developer sitting back and thinking, oh yes, the players will do this.
How much would you say that something needs to be stealthy, though, in that regard? And that's not to be facetious. It's because, is Dishonored 2 a stealth game? Because, I mean, it has the capacity to be, but it also has the capacity to very much not be.
Yeah, it's just that stealth is possible. It doesn't have to be forced, I think.
Okay.
So, the new Call of Duty has some missions where you can be somewhat stealthy, but I think even in those you end up having to kill a bunch of people, and certainly the rest of the game you just have to kill a whole lot of people.
But you'd say Splinter Cell would be a stealth game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, so the thing that makes the difference for me, and this maybe is a bit granular and probably immediately think of exceptions to it, is the thing that makes, an emergent stealth game is AI that is complicated enough to get stuff wrong. That seems to be the sort of consistent factor in really emergent stuff happening, is when the AI can be mistaken about what's going on or where you are.
I remember a time in Deus Ex Human Revolution where in the Hive, the nightclub, there's a thing where you need to hack a level 5 terminal that's in a public area. And I wasn't sure whether, I knew that hacking it would get me in trouble. If people saw me hacking it, that would get me in trouble. But I didn't know whether an automatic hack tool would count as that. Because technically it's on your grenade key. But it's just a thing you just plant on the wall. And so I thought maybe I'd get away with it. I couldn't get away with it. But it was this weird kind of alert where the bartender saw me and he summoned the guards and the guards came that way. But the guards themselves didn't know who they were looking for. And obviously once I saw that it alerted, I sort of jumped off a balcony and, got away. And then as I was walking around the club, I saw the guards rush off to the place that I'd just been. And so I kind of followed them and I just walked alongside them. And there's 10 of them all with their guns out saying, oh, we're going to get you, motherfucker. And I'm just standing alongside them saying, oh, who are we hunting?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. I think because that allows those situations to develop where you haven't necessarily instantly failed, which seems to be the kind of the criteria for an emerging situation is one that needs to be able to emerge. It's not like a binary stealth sequence in the traditional stealth challenge in a game people hate. The reason that isn't emergent is it's often actually just a maze or essentially a horizontal platforming section, because the idea is to just, not enter a certain area that gets you killed, basically, where a sight cone might as well be a drop.
So I say, from what you're saying, I think it's more about the wiggle room than their capacity to get things wrong, because that feels more like a thing that would be coded in. What I'm thinking is more they might just be looking in completely different directions, or they might vary their pattern every now and again, or, all of that kind of stuff. But I guess for me, it's more about your own ability to either surprise yourself or to go off-piste and not be punished, but actually feel rewarded.
I think that's true. I guess maybe a different way of saying it would be AI with a sense of interiority. Where their experience kind of matters, like in Hitman with the proliferation of information.
Yeah.
And what different AI know being important. In Dishonored, that's more about the way guards in an area transmit information to each other is a big way of.
Yeah. This is kind of what the sim part of immersive sim is trying to refer to. I think it's not the great term for it because it also seems to apply to farming simulator. But, in the new Call of Duty, I think I mentioned, the first stealth mission you do, or first stealth mission I did, is very scripted. And there's a moment where, you're undercover and you're in disguise, you're wearing an enemy uniform, and for most of the mission that's worked. And then you come up to a situation where you're supposed to rendezvous with your buddy and she's fighting the enemy and you're supposed to come in and save her and beat up the enemy. And I decided I didn't want to blow my cover, so I just stood with the enemy and watched them shoot at her, and she shot back at them, and eventually they killed most of them. But after that moment, your disguise is automatically seen to by everyone, because it's not simulated, it's scripted. It's like, that was the moment where your disguise is supposed to be blown, so it just is blown whether you actually did anything suspicious or not, or whether the enemy communicated with each other or not. That's just the way it's supposed to go. And if it was an immersive sim, or an emergent stealth game, it would have to be that any enemy who can see through your disguise, there must be some reason they can see through your disguise. They must have seen you do something wrong, or that some ship-wide alert has gone out that you must know about, that otherwise it's not a simulation.
And like, that's the sort of thing that like Dishonored is specifically really good at. Like, even if it tells you, you need to do this thing to get into this room, if you do it wrong, it's normally got some plan for that in advance, and it doesn't stop you and it lets you keep going, which is, I guess, again, that's where the emergent thing comes from. And that, I guess, isn't anything to do with AI. It's more to do with them respecting the logic of the universe.
But you can still fail, can't you?
You can fail, but not for the reasons games fail you a lot of the time.
But, like, do you think that breaks the emergent stealth bit of it? Like, you know, if you fuck up the mission and there is no option to continue with the fuck up being part of your playthrough?
No, that's what I'm saying, is often there is, like...
No, but what I'm saying is I'm so sure that there have been things where, like, a vital plot point in the original Dishonored, like, yeah, like, I think
if they die, it's game over.
Yeah, there are, like...
So things like that felt a little bit like, oh, okay, well, that took me out of it a bit, I guess.
Yeah, like, in the old Dishonored, if you shoot allies in the pub, it just says, you know, game over, you're a dick, and no one likes you, so this game is now over. But it's more, I guess it's on a spectrum there, where the amount of stuff it lets you get away with in mission is vastly in excess of what a Call of Duty game would be. Yeah.
In Dishonored 2, it's almost never come up. I think there's one time when there's someone who's mission critical, who's in a mission, and I can't remember if I intentionally killed them or if I just got them killed by accident. And it says game over. But that was literally my mission, and it was understandable why it was game over.
Yeah.
I have hated that stuff, like you mentioned Splinter Cell, and that was something that really rubbed me the wrong way in Splinter Cell, is if there are certain missions where if 3 alarms go off, it's game over. And it's not because you get shot, like, it's just 3 alarms up and then just game over, and Sam's standing right there. And it would always piss me off that, like, okay, but, like, Sam's life isn't over. I thought I was playing Sam. I want to see what happens to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I guess, what I mean, relative, like, compared to, like, yeah, and then the extreme example of that is like the old stealth maze in Zelda, which is the extreme far end of, you know, navigate this series of hazards or fail. It's not really stealth. It's more like a maze or something.
I think that is stealth. It's just not emergent stealth.
Yeah.
Because it is what people understand as stealth, in that it's slower paced and more deliberate, and you're avoiding vision cones.
On a different kind of immersive first-person adventure side of things, Scoo writes, and he's worded this in a way that's very hard to read out loud, so I'll try and explain as I go. He says, that level in Titanfall 2 is different for everyone. When he says that level, he means like that one level that everyone's been raving about. I thought Into the Abyss, but others thought Effect and Cause. Which is yours?
For me, I think it's also Effect and Cause.
Yeah, definitely Effect and Cause. And Pip?
Well, given that I haven't played Titanfall, maybe I should pick the other one.
Into the Abyss.
I like Abysses. It's very ocean-centric, right?
That's the cool factory one. That was cool.
Well, that's what I mean.
Think at the time I played it, I thought, oh, maybe this is the standout level everyone's talking about.
Yeah. So, having, you know, I was lucky enough to play it, like, slightly just before release for review, and Into the Abyss, I still don't want to spoil stuff, unfortunately, for the specificity in which I can have this conversation, because it's definitely worth playing that game unspoiled if you can. But, Into the Abyss was the level where I first thought, I already thought the game was good, and that was the level where I thought, shit, this game's got stuff going on visually and in terms of its level design and its ambitions. But Effect and Cause is such a cool, like, paradigm shift for what you're doing in the game and how you're asked to do it that, stop that, Pip.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm in a weird mood.
Kicking the back of my microphone so it rotates further away from my face.
Yeah.
Anyway, Effect and Cause is my answer to this question. We should probably...
I like Ocarina of Time.
Excellent, yeah, that's a good one.
Standout mission in Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
Weird tonal shift for the game, but...
They all go back to the N64 for a while.
Yeah, the Pac-Man level was really something.
Ash summons an old console from the sky.
Ash.
Yeah. Him off the Pokemon series.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't sure where he came from.
Titanfall moon, Titanfall sun.
Yeah.
Red, gold, blue, pink, purple, whatever else. What other opposites do they not have?
Oh no.
No, not again.
Cats and dogs.
Finally, Duncan writes, best clouds in a game.
My first thought was Clouds in Cloud, that game by that game company. Sounds like the most generic answer I could give. Sounds like I'm bluffing, doesn't it? That is a real game by a real company called That Game Company. But actually, I think the clouds in House of the Dying Sun. I mean, I guess technically I don't think they're nebulae, because nebulae are huge, and these are just local bits of gas that you warp in through.
Just local gas.
That counts as a cloud. But I played that in VR, and being at the helm of this massive metal ship and warping into this properly like volumetric 3D cloud was properly amazing.
Good clouds.
I like the skies in general in Cradle, which is the sort of point and click yurt game.
Oh yeah, yurt game.
Which it has a really wonderful sense of place anyway, but the sky changes over the course of the game, and I know that I've screenshotted the hell out of it at various points. So definitely that. And I think a lot of people were getting really, really into, is it Forza 4?
Or Forza Horizon 3?
Whatever the one was that came out this year.
Forza Horizon 3.
Was set in Australia.
Forza Horizon 3.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just clarifying.
I think that's what it's called anyway.
Anyway, so they had a bunch of like high definition screenshots up because I haven't played it yet, but I was really interested to see that, because I think they'd done a lot of fancy filming and things in Australia to get those effects, and it really showed. Like, there were some really properly gorgeous skies and cloud effects as part of that in that game. Looked like I'd quite like to go and have a look.
Surprised none of you answered Cloud Strafe or Fox McCloud. The only two.
Who's the thing in that game that is called Cloud?
As in Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Cloud Strafe.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
That's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
Final Fantasy, but it's not subtle.
What's the other one called?
In that game.
Yeah.
Tifa.
No.
Barrett.
No.
Red 8.
The lady one.
Eris.
Eris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one in Final Fantasy X called Tidus.
That's certainly...
Tidus and Cloudus. They could have been friends.
Indeed. They're two similar men from two different universes.
Yeah. Are they not all in the same universe?
No, every Final Fantasy game pretty much is a reboot.
Of what?
Of like the themes. They have some common design elements, but they're completely separate.
But like, who are these people?
They're just hot teens in peril.
But are they in Earth?
No. I mean, Final Fantasy VII is set in Midgard.
Oh. Really?
Not like that name, Midgard, it's just called Midgard.
Well, I mean, sorry
is one of them
for not
in a
knowing
place called Eorzea or something.
Eorzea, yeah, which is Final
Eorzea
Fantasy.
Horizon 3.
Nice. That's actually a really good joke. I think that's Final Fantasy 15?
I remember seeing some screenshots of that and it looks good.
Or 14. I think maybe 14.
They all have
Oh no,
curtains,
someone built it in the
don't they?
Crisis Engine, that was it. Someone created some kind of scene from that in the Crisis Engine and flew around it, and it looked really amazing. Bunch of waterfalls.
All of the boys have curtains.
Yeah,
like it's the
they do.
90s and they're Devon Sawyer.
The, God, and then Final Fantasy 13 is the one with, I can't remember where that's set. Maybe that's Eorzea. All I know is it's Falsey and Ilsey, and those are two very importantly different things. There's a lot of good whiffle.
All Final Fantasy fans are cringing at
Yeah,
this whole
sorry
section.
everybody. This is what it sounds like to me when someone else talks about Mass Effect.
Is Symphonia part of this?
No. It's a different JRPG series.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was like a spin-off, like Crystal Chronicles or something.
No, not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
My favourite clouds in a game are probably not game specific, but I do love a good, like 16-bit parallax scrolling cloudscape, particularly when it's going very quickly.
Like
sort of,
in what?
like a boss battle of Sonic 2 kind of thing. Or
That's
like
not a PC game.
Shinobi. They came out on PC.
Is it?
Yeah, totally did.
Oh.
Also, whatever. It's best clouds, not like, let's not all be, platform exclusive about this, Pip.
Okay.
Just shame me.
Sorry.
from having a Mega Drive.
Aw. I feel bad now.
There's probably also like a online data joke somewhere in best clouds.
Oh, I love
Steam
Google
Cloud.
Drive. Wow.
It would be cool to know if there are games that do more than the sort of cumulonimbus. Just
Where's
as a
my
matter
strata?
of course. Yeah, cause there are some really amazing looking clouds that I think there's a mare's tail thing, which is just like, it kind of looks like sort of ticks across the sky almost. But,
Cirrus is a good one.
and so it would just be really cool, like the mackerel sky that you get, like with some effects, but maybe it would just be too hard to make it look like people would understand clouds to look if you stylize it in most ways. Does Dishonored have clouds?
Yes.
What kind of clouds?
Sky clouds.
Air clouds.
So not very
Water
interesting
vapor.
clouds.
Of the 3 elemental clouds, the most common.
Okay. Well,
There's no more jokes left in this.
no.
I'm afraid.
Actually, clouds are 2 elements, aren't they? Because they're air and water.
Yeah. If you add fire, you get rain. That's what that Adele song is about.
What? Hello? Which Adele song?
Set fire to the rain.
Oh, I don't know that song. Okay.
Hello, it's me, a cloud.
I'm on fire. Help.
Famous. It's about a breakup.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Okay.
Oh, we could have said cloud computing.
Yeah,
Tom just did.
I tried to
Oh,
make that joke.
did you?
Well, I didn't
Oh,
really make that
sorry.
joke. I just said the joke of that kind could be made. Formally stated
Hypothetically.
And then I rude that we didn't.
None of us have an actual joke of that form.
No, what was the question? Maybe
To be
we could
fair,
try.
though, Tom owes you one joke, Pip.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
that's
The debt is
true.
repaid now.
And that is all the questions we've got time for before trotting off to do our Dishonored spoiler cast. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode, you can email us questions@craytoncrowbar.com. You can tweet us at @CraytonCrowbar. You can jump on Discord to discuss the episode and hang out with our rad community. The link will be in the show notes and is also on the website on craytoncrowbar.com in the sidebar. And if you like, you can follow us on Twitter as individuals. I'm at @CThurston, which is CTHURSTEN. Tom is.
Pentadact at PENTADACT.
And Pip.
Hello.
Also.
I am at Philippa War, which is no.
80.
Oh, you were trying to do it without counting on your hands as well, and it's all gone wrong.
Oh, this is just dreadful. Yes.
Or you could follow Pip, who is.
At Philippa War, which is PHILIPPAWARR.